Do you do the wrong exercises to strengthen your glutes? If you think squats are the best solution for strong legs and well-defined glutes, it's time to discover the hip thrust. Studies show that this exercise can activate up to 200% more of the glute muscles than the traditional squat. Now imagine an exercise that not only sculpts your physique, but also protects your joints, improves your posture, and helps you stay mobile even after 60 years. If you're interested, stay with me until the end because I'm going to show you how to perform the hip thrust correctly and avoid the mistakes that sabotage your results. When we think about strengthening the glutes, the squat is often the first exercise that comes to mind. After all, it's one of the most well-known movements in the fitness world. However, while the squat is a complete and effective exercise, it may not be the best choice for those who want to maximize glute activation and achieve faster and safer results. The hip thrust, on the other hand, was specifically designed for this purpose, which is why it stands out as the most effective option for developing strength, definition, and stability. One of the main reasons the hip thrust stands out compared to the squat is its much more intense muscle activation, especially in the glutes. While the squat works multiple muscle groups simultaneously, such as the quadriceps, lower back, and calves, the hip thrust focuses the effort directly on the glutes, allowing for isolated muscle work with maximum efficiency. Studies have already proven that the hip thrust activates the glute muscles much more than the traditional squat, meaning each repetition generates more intense and targeted stimulation. In addition to superior muscle activation, the hip thrust places less impact on the joints, making it a safer alternative for many people. When doing squats, the knees take on a significant load, especially in deep squats or when using heavy weights. This can be problematic for people who already experience joint discomfort or have pre-existing injuries. The hip thrust, however, allows you to strengthen the glutes without overloading the knees or lower back, making it an excellent option for training safely without taking unnecessary risks. Another key point that highlights the superiority of the hip thrust is its positive impact on posture and overall balance. Stronger glutes play a crucial role in supporting the body, helping to prevent lower back pain, improving stability while walking, and reducing the risk of falls and injuries. This is particularly important for people over 50 or 60 who may start to experience a natural decline in muscle strength and mobility. By incorporating the hip thrust into their routine, they can not only sculpt their glutes but also preserve their body's functionality over the years. When it comes to aesthetics, the hip thrust also stands out. Many people training to develop their glutes notice that squats tend to emphasize quadriceps growth more than glute development. This can lead to disproportionate muscle development, especially for those looking for a more balanced and harmonious silhouette. The hip thrust, however, targets the glutes in a way that promotes a more proportionate and sculpted figure. On the other hand, the hip thrust directly and effectively targets the glutes, helping to sculpt a more rounded and defined shape without excessively increasing the volume of the thighs. If you still have doubts about which exercise to prioritize, ask yourself the following question. Is your goal to strengthen your glutes in a quick, effective, and safe way? If the answer is yes, then the hip thrust should absolutely be a part of your workout routine. Not only does it deliver faster results, but it also protects your body from injuries, improves your posture, and allows for more controlled long-term progress. Now that you understand why the hip thrust is the ideal exercise for strengthening the glutes, it's time to learn how to perform it correctly. Let's go step by step to see how to execute each repetition in the best possible way. The foundation of the hip thrust starts with proper support. You'll need a bench, a stable sofa, or a solid platform to rest your upper back during the exercise. The ideal height of this support should be approximately at the level of your knees when you're sitting on the floor. This detail is essential to ensure optimal range of motion, thus allowing maximum activation of your glutes and a more effective execution of the exercise. When positioning yourself, the upper part of your back should be resting against the bench at the level of your shoulder blades. Your chest should start slightly tilted backward and stay stable throughout the movement. Your feet should be firmly planted on the floor, hip-width apart, and your knees should form an angle close to 90 degrees. If your feet are too far from your body, your hamstrings will be more engaged, reducing glute activation. On the other hand, if your feet are too close, the load may shift to your knees, increasing the risk of discomfort or injury. Now that you're correctly positioned, it's time to begin the hip thrust motion. The first step is to push your feet firmly into the ground, ensuring that all the force generated comes from your glutes. Avoid using your lower back or quadriceps to push yourself up, as this could reduce glute activation and lead to lower back pain. As you lift your hips, your goal is to align your shoulders, hips, and knees in a straight line. This alignment is crucial to ensure maximum glute activation. The most common mistake is not fully raising the hips, which limits the range of motion and reduces the benefits of the exercise. At the top of the movement, one of the key points for maximizing results and muscle contraction is to focus on squeezing your glutes as hard as possible, as if you're trying to hold a coin between them. This intense activation is essential to ensure optimal work of the glutes, promoting their growth and muscular definition over the long term. After reaching the top of the movement and holding the contraction for 1 or 2 seconds, it's time to lower your hips in a controlled manner. This is one of the most critical moments of the exercise because many people simply release their body and let their hips drop quickly. Not only does this reduce the effectiveness of the exercise, but it can also create an impact on the lower back, compromising the safety of the movement. The descent should be done slowly, maintaining full control. The key to constant tension in the glutes is to lower the hips until they are just above the floor without completely releasing the muscle tension. This way, at the start of the next repetition, the glutes will already be activated, making the exercise even more effective. Breathing also plays a crucial role at this stage. It's recommended to breathe in deeply as you lower your hips and exhale as you rise to maximize muscle activation and ensure stable movement. Moreover, this breathing technique helps stabilize the body, reducing the risk of overloading the lumbar region. Now that you've mastered the correct execution of the hip thrust, it's time to take your results to the next level. To avoid stagnation and ensure balanced glute development, it's essential to vary the stimuli in your workout. Small adjustments in the way you perform the movement can intensify muscle activation, correct asymmetries, and make the exercise even more effective. Below, you'll discover some of the best variations of the hip thrust and how each of them can bring unique benefits to your body. One of the most effective variations is the unilateral hip thrust, which works each side of the body independently. This variation is ideal for correcting muscle imbalances and improving stability because it forces the body to focus on one side at a time. To perform it, the starting position is the same as the standard hip thrust, but instead of pushing the hips up with both feet on the ground, you use one leg while the other remains extended in the air. The great advantage of this variation is that it engages the stabilizing muscles of the hips and body more, promoting better balance and more symmetrical muscle development. Another interesting option to intensify the hip thrust is to use a resistance band around the knees. This technique further activates the glute muscles, especially the lateral part, which is crucial for maintaining hip stability during the movement. The band adds extra resistance, forcing the muscles to work harder to keep the knees aligned and prevent them from collapsing inward. This small adjustment can make a huge difference, especially for those who want to strengthen their glutes while preventing pain or instability in the lower back. For those who already master the basic hip thrust technique and want to increase the load, the best option is to add weights, such as a barbell with plates or a dumbbell on the hips. Weighted hip thrusts provide an even more intense stimulus to the muscles, accelerating development and strength gains. The key is to progress gradually, starting with light weights and increasing them as the body adapts. It's important to always prioritize proper form. Technique is key, as excessive weight can compromise your posture and reduce glute activation. Each of these variations can be incorporated into your workout routine to avoid muscle adaptation and continue challenging your body for optimal results. The ideal approach is to alternate between these variations over the weeks, testing different ones and identifying which ones have the most impact on you. Additionally, don't forget to adjust the intensity and volume of your workout based on your experience level and your goals. It's also essential to understand the most common mistakes that can hinder the execution of the exercise and limit your results. Even slight posture errors or improper load distribution can compromise the effectiveness of the movement and increase the risk of injury. Let's go over these mistakes and how to correct them to ensure that each hip thrust repetition is performed safely and effectively. Although the hip thrust is one of the most effective exercises for strengthening the glutes, it can lose much of its benefits if performed incorrectly. Small mistakes can affect your results, overload joints unnecessarily, and even lead to pain or injury. To ensure that each repetition is truly effective, it's crucial to identify the most common mistakes and learn how to avoid them throughout the movement. One of the most frequent errors is not fully extending the hips at the top of the movement. Many people perform the hip thrust partially, without raising their hips high enough for their body to form a straight line from shoulders to hips to knees. When this happens, glute activation is incomplete, which significantly reduces the exercise's effectiveness. To avoid this, make sure your glutes are fully contracted when you reach the top of the movement and that your posture is properly aligned. Another common mistake involves the incorrect positioning of the feet and knees. When the feet are too far or too close to the glutes, the effort may shift to other muscles like the hamstrings or quadriceps, reducing glute activation. The ideal position is to keep your feet firmly planted on the floor at hip width, ensuring that your knees neither flare out too much nor collapse inward during the exercise. To address this issue, an effective tip is to use a resistance band around the knees, which helps maintain proper alignment and maximizes muscle activation. Additionally, many people add excessive weight before mastering the technique. The hip thrust is an exercise that requires precise movement control and conscious muscle activation. Trying to progress too quickly by increasing the load can lead to sloppy execution, where the lower back takes on some of the effort, increasing the risk of pain and injury. The ideal approach is to start with body weight, focusing on proper posture and muscle contraction. Only after fully mastering the technique should you gradually increase the load. Finally, another common mistake that compromises the execution of the hip thrust is forgetting to properly activate the body during the movement. Keeping the core engaged is essential to avoid overloading the lower back. Many neglect this activation, which can lead to discomfort in the lower back and a loss of stability. To avoid this, take the time to engage the core muscles before each repetition and maintain a solid posture throughout the exercise. Correcting these mistakes and focusing on perfect execution will ensure that the hip thrust becomes a safe and highly effective exercise for strengthening the glutes. Now that you know how to avoid the most common mistakes, let's move on to some strategies to maximize your results and ensure continuous progress in your training. Now that you understand how to properly execute the hip thrust and avoid frequent errors, it's time to learn how to optimize your sessions even more to ensure effective glute development. Small adjustments in technique, training frequency, and load progression can make all the difference in achieving faster and more consistent results. The first strategy to maximize your results is to maintain an adequate training frequency. The hip thrust should be practiced at least 3 times a week to ensure the muscles receive enough stimulus to grow and strengthen. However, it's essential to allow sufficient time for muscle recovery, as the glutes need to repair after the effort. Alternating intense training days with active recovery days, including stretching and mobility exercises, can be an excellent way to prevent excessive fatigue and improve performance over the long term. Another key factor to optimize the hip thrust is load progression. If the goal is to increase strength and muscle mass, it's important to gradually increase the resistance used in the exercise. Starting with body weight is essential to master the form. Technique is crucial, but later on it's necessary to add progressive challenges. Using dumbbells, barbells with plates, or resistance bands can make the exercise even more effective. The secret lies in gradually increasing the load while maintaining proper form. In addition to load, another way to optimize gains is by varying the execution of the exercise. Alternating between different hip thrust variations, like the unilateral version with a resistance band, or incorporating a prolonged hold, helps recruit different muscle fibers and prevents the body from getting accustomed to the same stimulus. This allows you to work the glutes more thoroughly and ensures more balanced development. Nutrition also plays a key role in optimizing results. For muscles to grow and recover properly, it's essential to consume high-quality proteins like eggs, chicken, fish, and legumes. Additionally, complex carbohydrates such as sweet potatoes, brown rice, and oats provide the necessary energy to support intense training. Healthy fats found in foods like avocado, olive oil, and nuts are also vital for maintaining muscle and hormonal health. Another crucial factor for good results is prioritizing rest and muscle recovery. Muscle growth doesn't happen during training, but during the recovery phase when muscle fibers rebuild and get stronger. Sleeping at least 7 to 8 hours per night is essential for optimal recovery and to avoid excessive fatigue. Techniques like myofascial release, massages, and stretching can help reduce muscle soreness and improve flexibility. thus enhancing performance during workouts. Finally, one often underestimated detail that makes all the difference is the mind-muscle connection during the execution of the hip thrust. Consciously focusing on glute activation and achieving maximum muscle contraction can significantly improve the effectiveness of the exercise. Many people perform the movement mechanically without truly paying attention to the muscles being targeted, which can limit gains. Visualizing the contraction of the glutes with each repetition and controlling the execution ensures that the targeted muscles are activated optimally. By following these strategies, the hip thrust can become one of the most powerful exercises in your workout, offering both aesthetic and functional benefits. With consistency, proper technique, and attention to detail, results will come progressively and be long-lasting. Now that you know how to optimize your performance, it's time to put everything into practice and transform your training sessions. The most important thing now is to apply everything you've learned. No matter your level of experience, consistency is key to achieving the best results. The hip thrust should be practiced at least 3 to 4 times per week, with 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions. This frequency effectively stimulates the muscles, promoting their growth and strengthening. However, it's essential to respect muscle recovery and integrate this exercise into a balanced training program to also strengthen other muscle groups and optimize your overall performance. If you want to continue progressing and improve your workouts, in the next video, I'll reveal a special routine to maximize muscle mass gains after the age of 60. If you like this, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and don't miss this essential tip to transform your training. See you there!